Breeze Nation, what is good? It's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Special guest on today's show. A couple special guests actually on today's show. First episode ever that I get to do with Pops in the building. Welcome to the show, Pop. We're glad to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to be on with you.
Pops, of course, writes the column, the For the Breeze over on the Patreon side, Catching the Breeze. You can tap in with him, and we got a couple special guests, like I said, on today's episode. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do, and make sure that you clap it up in the comments for a Chicago legend. If you have ever hooped in Chicago, you are going to know this name because it is a name that was told to you that you were not better than for pretty much your entire life. Coming out of Morgan Park, winning a state championship, and as always being dominant. And like I said, every uncle, grandfather ever told you that was the guy to go tap in with. From Morgan Park, Levi Cobb in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, clap it up. Levi, how are you?
Great. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. What a build-up.
Man, listen, I went my whole life getting told, you need to go watch this. I saw this. This is who was hooping out of it. Like, it was like, I'm not terrible at basketball, y'all. I can play a little bit.
That is cool. That is awesome.
I got to tell you, so Pat, the first time I saw this man play basketball was as an 8th grader at Leo High School on the south side. Your papa played. Your papa coached coached basketball for St. Thomas More School, and we went over to Leo High School for a Sunday morning tournament, and I saw this man as an 8th grader play against a guy named Dan Cleary, and we thought Dan Cleary could play some basketball till we saw Levi Cobb play some basketball. So I saw him as an 8th grader. And it was something, and we knew he was something special. So it's a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Like I said before, you guys, when you first approached me, anytime anybody remembers my name or remembers what I did or what we did as a team, I'm humbled and I'm very grateful.
Well, yeah, and you know what, Levi, we really want to educate these young folks because they think before Steph Curry shot a jump shot, nobody in the whole world ever shot a jump shot. So and to get ready for this show, I made Pat watch that 1976 Morgan Park West Aurora state championship game. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm well versed in a lot of stuff, Levi Cobb, right now, and I had tapped in. Of course, I had seen you growing up with my dad here. Like, he's gonna show me all the old highlights and stuff like that. But it was really cool, like getting to watch a full game of you. And I think what's interesting about you going to Morgan Park is that you end up going there because basically they told you weren't good enough to play in the Catholic League, which was the big league back then. You weren't able to get a scholarship. What was that feeling like at first, being told you're not good enough to play over here with the people that really can get after it, and then going out there and accomplishing everything you accomplished basketball-wise?
Well, two things. Growing up in the neighborhood, we played every sport. I remember grabbing old brooms and trying to play hockey, in the streets, with an old rubber ball, things like that. So basketball for us was just another season. Mm-hmm. I was really locked into baseball and football. My father played baseball, and I still got pictures of my father and my mom. My father's a pitcher. My mom is a bat catcher. And he's telling me, we had a big plastic bat. He's showing me how to hit. He played baseball growing up. And so for me, it was disappointing because it was just part of growing up, part of maturing to go into the next sport. But for somebody to tell you that, no, son, just stick to football and baseball, and we think you're going to be a better athlete with that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was really, we lived at 79th at that time. I'm sorry, not 79th. We lived 8150 South Peoria, which is right down the street from Leo High School. And so we moved there, grew up in Morgan Park my whole life. We moved there shortly after my father passed away. And so I got to know all the guys in the neighborhood. We played like I said, we played every sport growing up. And then so when I went down to Leo to try out, the coach, I think they had just won the state championship, and they had Tony Parker and that whole crew with them. And so, a little skinny kid from, the neighborhood coming in to play, it wasn't very exciting, against those guys. But
Right.
looking back, I was very fortunate to go to Morgan Park to play for a coach that taught me how to play the game, taught me the right way.
So you ended up going to Morgan Park. Now you guys were a force kind of right from the beginning. You actually competed for the city championship. Now your sophomore year, you actually won the city championship, correct?
Correct. My sophomore year, and it was totally by accident that I ended up on the basketball team because I went out for football as a freshman, and I made the varsity football team. And being competitive as we were, the football players always play the basketball players during lunch period. And so we were out there and playing, and one of the guys on the basketball team said, "Hey, are you going to try out for basketball?" I said, "Nah, I'm not that good. I'm, just stick with football." And so they actually went and got Coach Warden, Bill Warden. He was the head coach, and they brought him out to see me play at lunchtime. And he said, "Why don't you come out into the gym, and I want to show you a few things." So I said, okay. So 6 o'clock in the morning, 2 feet from the basket, standing in the lane, he showed me my fundamental form. And that's all he showed me. And so for, I don't know how long, I was just sitting there, just shooting. And it got to a point where everything was repetition. So he showed me that. Then he moved me out to ball handling. Then he moved me out to the footwork. Then he put me back inside to learn the post moves. And then, so it was a continual growth until basketball season started. I got hurt playing football, and that was all my mom needed because she was like, "No, I'm not signing." And so, Coach Warden, he passed away a few years ago, but he lived maybe about an hour from where I live now. And so we would go up and we would talk about the games and everything. And he said, "I'm glad your mom didn't sign that card for you to go back and play football." I said, "Coach, I really love playing football." He said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "But I think you made the best choice."
Well, listen, I think that how you went through the rest of your life would agree with what Coach said. Speak to, to be able to be that kind of athlete where Coach comes out and sees you, walks you into the gym, shows you some things, and it starts to click for you. That we've seen that, right? But you end up being one of the better hoopers at a time, one of the best hoopers at a time where Illinois basketball was not nothing to turn your head at. Illinois basketball was really getting after it back in the late 70s, early 80s. What was it like to be able to make your name in basketball with the amount of hoopers that were coming out at that time that were really putting on a display of some really good play?
One of the things that really drove me to, and I didn't know that I was really good or that I was, doing something really well until after my sophomore year, when I started receiving letters from colleges offering me scholarships.
Yeah.
And so one of the ladies in the front office, she said, "Levi, you got a box of letters in here, and these schools want to give you a scholarship." I said, "Scholarship? What's a scholarship?" She said, "Well, you'd be able to go to college for free." And we didn't have money back then for, to go to college. And so I was like, "Oh, really?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Just keep doing what you're doing." So that was my first education in terms of, gaining a scholarship to go to college. But before that, my freshman year, a lot of it was the growth of Coach Warden taught us the fundamental play of basketball. But the guys in the neighborhood, the guys I grew up with, they taught me how to win and taught us how important it was to not just score points, but to be a champion. So guys, I was a freshman. I had Irv Kimbrough, Eddie Stacks. Parham played at Morgan Park that went on. I think he ended up being a judge in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But he was a two-sport football player, football and basketball. Michael Wilcoxon, all these older guys that would always say, "Oh, okay, you got 20. Did you win the game? Yeah, you won the game. All right, did you win the championship?" So it wasn't just about winning one game or scoring 30 points or something like that. At the end of the year, you had to look back and say if you won a championship or not. And that's how successful you could determine the season was. Not just about a bunch of points. But that was part of it. And then, walking the halls as a freshman at Morgan Park was a little shocking because I had 4 older sisters that all went to Morgan Park. And so I never wanted to go to Morgan Park just because of that. They were girls to me, they were my sisters. I don't want to follow my sisters. I wanted to stay in my neighborhood and either go to CVS or Simeon or Lindblom or Leo right down the street. And so they were all my sisters were smart, educated, stayed in the church, did everything the right way. And here I come, chasing sports and being a knucklehead. But what really drove me was that whenever we played like a Hirsch with Ricky Green and Josh Robinson, or there was a guy named Brian Banks that played at Carver, 6'10", that was all these guys were all everything. And I was this freshman. And so building up to game time, everybody that I would see in the hallways from teachers to students was like, oh my goodness, you playing Ricky Green today. Oh, he's great. He's going to do this. Or you're playing Brian Banks. He's going to do this. And he's 6'10", and you're only 6'3", and blah, blah, blah. And by the time the game rolled around, I was so pissed off. I was like, I don't care who they are. I was ready to eat meat. I was just that charged up. So that really fueled, the championships that we won in Morgan Park and the city championship we won in my sophomore year.
So now, Pat, what you need to know is Ricky Green went on to play for a national championship at University of Michigan.
Yep.
So he was, and they lost that team lost to Indiana. So he was a great player. And at this time, the power in the state for boys basketball was on the south side of Chicago because 3 years straight. They had just started AA basketball. They had just started the two divisions, and Hirsch High School, and then Wendell Phillips. And then Morgan Park came in the next year and won the state championship. So let's talk about that state championship team, though, Levi. So you guys were looking to come back and repeat. It was your senior year, but you guys, it was a tough city championship game that got you to go to state that year.
Oh my goodness, some of the players, and I know, and I'm gonna forget some names, but Ronnie Lester played, with Kent Dancing, Tiggs was at Orr. I think Jeff Stewart was at CVS with Bowman. Billy Foster was at Orr. There was another guard. I can't remember his name right now. Lynn Williams was at Harrison. He was all city too. So we had, a lot of competition. That the year we won my sophomore year, that was all kind of new to us. But my senior year, having went to state my sophomore year and lost, my senior year, it was like, and I told Ron Hicks this. Ron was a great friend of mine that passed away a few years ago. That I felt like we're almost destined to win that state championship because of everything that happened. Yeah. My sophomore year, we lost, and going into the locker room after the game, oh my goodness, all the seniors that were on the team, I felt like I let everybody down. So I said, if I ever get another opportunity, we are not, I never want to feel like this again. Never, especially with, there were so many guys that sacrificed for me to get there. I felt like I let them down, So my senior year, we were playing and we had a lot of 1-point games. We had, it was close. It was, all the way down to the championship, another 1-point game.
Yeah, well, winning the city championship back then, Pat, was Ronnie Lester went on to play at Iowa. So yeah, there was some amazing talent that was coming out of the city at that time.
Correct.
So you guys win on Friday, and now you get to Saturday, and you guys got to play Oak Park River Forest in the semifinals. And that semifinals, I remember because you end up playing Aurora West, who has an amazing game against Decatur Eisenhower.
Yep.
And you guys play Oak Park River Forest. What do you remember about that game?
Chuck Doms and I can't remember Courtney's last name. They had two big guys that played that. That was really, about every game we played. Every team we played had a D1 player on there, or maybe even two. So it was a battle. It was just so happens that like I said before, I think it was part of our destiny to do what we did, and Chuck Doms, Courtney, I can't remember Courtney's last name. Those guys gave us a hell of a game, and just how the ball bounced at the time. It was our turn.
Yeah, you guys put them away in the second half, and actually they go on to take the consolation game that evening. So they were really that was a great game, and we were all excited. I remember my dad. We were Morgan Park, so we went. I was a Bogan Bengal. I ended up being a Bogan Bengal, so which was for those of you that don't know, that we were kind of arch rivals with Morgan Park.
Well, you guys had Marcellus Starks.
Yeah, at that time, yeah. So yeah. So but that's okay. So but you guys finally, everybody got the state championship game they wanted. It was West Aurora and Morgan Park.
Yeah,
and you guys got off to a rough start in that game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, a starting point guard had twisted his ankle the game before. We were really kind of beat up, but he still toughed it out. Jeff Berry, Eric Bowman, Larry Smith, those guys. After you play that, it's almost like playing back to back. You have a couple hours of rest and then bang, you're right back at it again. And so we started off slow. I think both teams started off slow, and they pulled away in the second half, like 11 points or 12 points, something like that. So it was a huge battle.
Yeah,
I got a question, because this is me coming from the young guy who's watching current high school basketball and has seen the Zion Williamsons in high school, has seen the Michael Porter Juniors on it. What were y'all eating and doing for a workout regimen? Y'all look like grown men out there. I was watching this. I was like, I don't even know who the small white point guard was on West Aurora, but I was like, this dude is jacked. What is his workout regimen?
Well, now everything is so, man, they have so much more than what we had.
Yeah.
Everything, I mean, from your weight to your diet to your strength training to your fundamental coach, all these different coaches, all these different different assignments that you can go to see yourself play and video and lock into, all that is great technology. We had one coach and an assistant coach that gave us everything that we needed. If they thought that I needed more extra time handling the ball, we didn't have a video camera. They said, Levi, go out there and dribble, X, Y, do this. And I did it.
Yeah.
Levi, you're going against this, and this, think about. And so it was more verbal. There wasn't a lot of video. There wasn't a lot of technology back then. It was just, and then as far as our diets, God, I can't remember so much about our diets, just that we had a, regular pregame meal with pasta, something like that. And then, we didn't eat a whole lot of junk food.
Yeah.
It was just a straight diet. But one of the things I do remember is that I didn't have a strength coach until the end of my freshman year at Illinois.
You can't tell.
Yeah.
you could not tell. I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, I don't even think steroids was a thing at this point. Like, why was everyone on the team jacked? But that was a sidebar. We're getting back to the game itself.
Yeah.
You guys start to wear them down. I mean, the fact that I'm watching the game too, and I'm like, man, a 3-point line would really help a little bit in this game to bring them back a little bit quicker. But what was the moment where you felt like, okay, they're on their back foot? We actually have the advantage here, where they're starting to let go of the rope.
I can't remember exactly the play, but there was a timeout call, and we had the same during the game where we used to kick it up extra notch, and so one of our players said, "Hey, Levi, it's time to go home," like that. And I said, "What?" He said, "It's time to go home, man. Kick it up. It's time to go home." And so from that call, we were walking, passing each other, going to our benches, and they heard us saying that, "Kick it up. It's time to go home. It's time to go home." And they looked. I remember one of the guys looking like, "Man, y'all down 11. Y'all ain't gonna win this game." That type, And so that was an extra fuel, that extra kick for us to go, all right, it's time for us to turn it up now. We basically, we've been kind of not being ourselves, not being aggressive, not trapping like we should have been trapping. And Coach Warden wasn't a yeller. He didn't scream and, all that. He was FCA, fellow Christian athlete, coach, didn't curse, didn't, any of that. But he had a way of talking to us that attracted our attention and told us exactly what, hey, let's go. It's time for you guys to, start playing. And so that's what, I can't remember the minute mark or anything like that, but I think they had a double-digit lead at the point.
Yeah.
And so that was the turning point for us.
Yeah, so we watched it, and I made Pat watch it before the thing. But yeah, so with 5 minutes to go in the game, you get your fourth foul. You guys are down 10 points with 5 minutes to go in the game, and you've taken your fourth foul, and you guys came back to win that game. One of the big things that is you guys switched from a zone to a man-to-man, and that seemed to make that kind of that dog defense seemed to make a big difference. And one of the things I loved, you're down 4 points with about 45 seconds left in the game. You come down, hit a jump shot, and then your defense turns them over. They throw the ball down the length of the court, and nobody's there to get it.
Yeah, that was crazy. I don't know what. I don't know who he thought he was throwing to. I'm like, there's nobody even close to being down there.
Yeah. And then you make a pass in. Larry Smith gets fouled, and with 7 seconds to go, he steps up to the free throw line for 2 free throws to tie it up. What are you thinking at that point?
Honestly, I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
It was like I was.
You locked in.
It was just next play. Yeah. Everything was next play. Yeah. What I do remember is that they threw the ball in, and I tied the kid up for a jump ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we had this play, Larry and I. We had did it, earlier that year, where I would tip him the ball, and he would grab it and shoot it, and I would just run to the basket for a rebound. So before I stepped in the circle, Larry, he looked at me, and we looked at each other, and he threw his hand up to an area where I could tip him the ball. And so I tipped him the ball. He caught it, and I just ran straight to the basket because it was next play. It was just what's next. And that thing, I looked up, and Ron Hicks was right in front of me, blocking me out. And it just went bang, all net,
All net. That was it. So for those of you that don't know, with 7 seconds to go, Larry Smith steps to the line, makes 1 out of 2. Levi ties up the inbounds pass to force a jump ball with 4 seconds to go in the game. He wins the tip on the jump ball, and his teammate Larry Smith hits a fadeaway jumper from about 18 feet to.
I don't know who you was jumping against, but he ain't have a chance. They literally on the broadcast. I don't know if you watched the broadcast. They literally go, so Levi's about to win this tip, and the only thing he has to do is get it to somebody. So,
you know, let me tell you how history works too, because I know we're talking about high school now, but fast forward, we played Michigan State,
yeah,
at home, and we had gotten to a point where, you know, my freshman year, I can't remember, we were 500 or one game under 500, but we had started to make a name for ourselves, so to speak, you know, as a contender, as somebody that, you know, you just couldn't step on, and which we really, you know, I really relished that, because it signaled that we were on the move. You know, we were about to start winning. But this one particular year, playing Michigan State at home, and same scenario. I'm jumping against Magic Johnson, and they threw the ball in. I tied up a kid, had to go get the jump ball. And so going over to the bench during the timeout, you know, Lou was giving it to us. Coach Henson was giving it to us. And so I said, look, I got the jump ball. Don't worry about it. I got the jump ball. I got to go get it. And so that was my mindset. You know, I didn't care who got it, as long as I could go get it for my team. And so when I went out there, did the same thing, got the jump ball, and then EJ, he knocked down, you know, jump shot to win the game.
So you were already prepared. You already prepared for this from what you had did at Morgan Park.
Exactly.
I was gonna have Patrick ask you about that. I remember that game. That was you guys. They won the national championship that year, but you guys canceled the Magic show at home. I remember that game.
You know, there were a few games. There were a few games like that, like beating Indiana for the first time.
Yeah.
Beat Michigan State. We beat. I think at one point we were 12-0, and we were on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
And they rated us to have the best forwards in the nation at one point. We had Eddie Johnson, Mark Smith, James Griffin, Derek Holcomb, Bresnahan. Bresnahan was a beast, man. Neil Bresnahan played at Oak Park. Fenwick. Played at Fenwick. Yep. He led the Big Ten in rebounding, I think, one year.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit. So you win the state title at Morgan Park. Kids weren't going. We talked about Ronnie Lester went to Iowa, that Ricky Green went to Michigan. We had Quinn Buckner went to Indiana. Kids weren't staying in state at that point. Yeah. Illinois wasn't the powerhouse that we know about now. And Lou Hatton, it was his first season. It was his first season, right? Gene Bartow had left Illinois to go to UCLA after one season.
Yep.
But Levi Cobb chose Illinois, and I remember that was a big deal, right? One of the best players in the state had really you were Mr. Basketball. You chose Illinois, and that was really a turning point for Illinois basketball, because it really since Johnny Kerr probably had somebody of your quality chosen to stay in state and play for University of Illinois. Why Illinois over all these other schools that had recruited you?
Oh wow, it was that was a crazy choice, because I received all these letters from all over, like you said, UCLA to you name it. Every school wanted, and I went to a Big Ten game. And I saw the physicality, and I saw how they were running. It wasn't a West Coast style of ball where everybody was just fast breaking, and there was no true physicality of the game. It wasn't an East Coast game where everybody was, throwing the ball between their legs and, all of that. But it was a true combination, I would say, of both. It was the physicality, it was the fundamentals, it was the athletic ability, and I was like, okay, where should I go? So I narrowed it down. I said, okay, I want to play in the Big Ten. I went to a Big Ten game, and Michigan State had Terry Furlow,
Yeah.
I believe at that time, and they only had two officials at that time too, and they were literally punching each other. I mean, just I don't know.
Haymaker.
Yeah, yes. It's not like it is now, where they, and I don't want to sound like the old man sitting on the porch yelling at the young kids, like,
Yeah.
hey, back in my day, hey, we used to drink Kool-Aid from a crack jug, and we were happy to get it, so, I don't want to, sound like that, but, it was physical, it was fast, it was fun, it was exciting, and so I wanted to stay in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And so, when Coach Bartow left, that was a shock to me because I had narrowed it down to Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Iowa. And so when he left, I was like, man, I was really disappointed because I wanted to, I looked at it like this, okay. Coming from the city, my mom and my sisters, my family, it would be easier for them to come down to Champaign to see us play. The other factor was that just coming down to Champaign as a sophomore and seeing that big stadium, it looked like a spaceship. Illinois has, like, even right now, I in my mind, the best stadium in the Big Ten in terms of basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the last time you guys were there, but they don't call it the Assembly Hall now. It's somebody else bought the name or something.
Yeah,
but
State Farm Center.
Yeah, it's Assembly Hall. So when we would come up there, we would go attend the game at night. The lights would blaze up, and it looked like a huge, So all that was real impressive to me. And so I was like, okay, well, if I stay here, my mom, who was sick at the time, could easily get down. Coach Bartow had told me too. He said, Levi, he said, if you stay here at Illinois, he said, I think it would be better for Illinois basketball. He said, I would love to take you with me to UCLA, but he had a factor in it too because I trusted him.
Yeah.
I put my trust in him and the assistant coach at that time, Tony Yates. And so when he left, I didn't know anything about Coach Henson coming in. I didn't know who he was. I knew he came in from Mexico. And it's not like today, guys can get on the internet or YouTube and you can research a coach and his background and you talk about his grade and how he coaches. You can see we didn't have all that. So Coach Bartow, he and Audie Matthews actually, and Audie is still I think he's still in Australia now, but Audie had a big impression with me when I came there because Audie was telling me, he said, look, Levi, he said, I'm not going to be here long. He said, you can move into my slot when I leave, as a two guard. And so I was like, okay, all these factors just started building up. And so then Lou came in, Coach Henson came in, and he, made his pitch. Coach Knight came in and scared the crap out of me my junior year. I want to say it was either my junior year or I can't remember which year, but I'm sitting in class and student comes in and gives the teacher a note and says, Bob Knight wants to talk to Levi Cobb. And I was like, Bob Knight? He's in the hallway. And so all the students in the classroom were like, Coach Knight's in the hallway? Coach Knight's in the hallway? Coach Knight from Indiana's in the hallway. And so the teacher said, Levi, you got a visitor in the hallway. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I went outside in between classes, and Coach Knight had me pinned up against the locker. He was talking to me. He was just shaking his finger, and he was turning red and practically screaming. He's like, son, I'm going to make you the best damn basketball player if you just come to Indiana and blah, 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 blah. I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so he was really a fiery champion.
Yeah.
He knew his players. He knew what he wanted to run. He came from a system where that they produced winners. so it's hard to argue or go against any of that. But for me, my high school coach was a big influence. My family was a big influence. And so for me to stay, at Illinois, and then, there are a lot of guys in Chicago. Oh man, you better not go to Illinois. Why? Oh man, they don't like you down there. You're gonna have a hard time. You're not gonna, do this. They're not gonna let you do this. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I hadn't heard any of that.
Right.
And maybe it was me just being cocky, or me thinking that, if I would go there, somebody else would come, and then we could start building, a winner. Because my plan was to win a national championship. Yeah. Period. It didn't matter how many points or any of that stuff. I figured the best way to, move Illinois up to that elite status was to win a championship. The Big Ten championships, those are great. Don't get me wrong. But to this day right now, I talk to, ex-players, I'm waiting for that championship, that national championship, And to me, that's what it's about.
That's how you change the perception on a school. And I think that, listen, as a diehard Illinois fan, there's only one sporting event in my life that I cried on, and they cheated. I don't care what nobody said, they cheated when they let Darren Williams and them boys go out there and win that national championship. I cried like a baby. My dad was like, "Hey man, we can't be." He's like, "It's a game, man. You can't be sitting there balling like this." I was like 12 years old. I was like, "Nah, they cheating. They cheating my boys."
Man, and I want to say they played that game in Missouri.
In St. Louis,
St. Louis.
They did. I went to more classes that year than Sean May did. I'm telling you, man, Sean May didn't go to any classes in North Carolina that year.
So let me tell you the build up to that, because we had an alumni game versus Missouri.
Okay.
Before that, and you got all these, retired players coming back just to play. The rivalry was strong, man. Let me tell you, we were hitting each other. We almost got into a fight. That's how it all, really started. So we ended up winning the game, and watching, Illinois lose to North Carolina like that, it was just like, you got to be kidding me. Really? We get this far, that close, and we don't get the championship because of that? It was like everybody was pissed.
Yeah.
That's
one of them ones I never forget. It's probably the moment I became like, I was like, hey, I might like sports a little bit too much. It worked out. I got a career out of it. It worked out. Let me ask you this, though, because I do think the college aspect of it, and you talk about the rivalries, Bob Knight showing up is a hilarious thing when you think about the fact that there was another Chicagoan at Indiana balling out. Was there any of we've heard a lot of the stories about Isaiah. Was there any of I ain't going down there to play with IT, man. I want to play against IT. Was there any of that in your game? Because listen, that smile to this day, I love what the Bulls did to him, but you got to give IT credit as one of the greatest hoopers to come out of Chicago.
Yes.
By far.
Yes. Think about the guards that came out of Chicago during that era. Ricky Green, Maurice Cheeks, Lynn Williams, Eddie Hughes. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I know, when you start naming names, you're going to get called out because people say, what about this guy? Or what about that guy? But Isaiah is one of the top, in my mind, my opinion, that came out of Chicago, top players that came out of Chicago at that spot. Yeah. And they won a national championship in Indiana.
Because
that
team won because of him. That 76 team had won as a team, and Quinn Buckner and Scott May and those guys. But that 81 team, if it wasn't for Bobby Knight, won that championship because Isaiah was on that team.
I thought it was because of the chair. I thought it was because of the chair. But did you have any of that where it was like, I love IT, I see what he is, but I got to play against him?
Yeah, well, you know what? During that era, especially when I was there, And I don't know if they still do this or not, but Wes Matthews was at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Top players, that were at different schools, we would get together and talk the weekend that they came in or the day before that they came in. I would either go over to the hotel and pick them up, and we would go over to the Union for a party, and we would, hang out. And then when I went up to Wisconsin or Minnesota, Trent Tucker, James Jackson, he was another top guard to play to Minnesota out of Chicago. They would come by and pick me up. We would sit around and talk. So there was sort of a camaraderie. But
from the city.
Yeah, from the city. But when we stepped on the floor, it was like none of that really mattered.
Yeah.
Because when you come back to the city, you want to say, hey, I beat you. During the Summer Pro League, games or whatever. Hey, we beat them. Yeah, Minnesota. Oh, Illinois beat Indiana here, or Indiana beat us, here, so we had that going on with just the regular competition of the game. We always wanted to have that rivalry.
Yeah. I love it. I think that's the one thing about the city that still stands is everybody loves being from the city, but the rivalries are, it is, I want to be the best hooper in Chicago. That's Derrick Rose always talks about his mentality coming out of the city. And he's like, I want to be one of those ones that they talk about like the best in the city.
I want to ask a question about, though, you talk about rivalries. So, and I remember this and back in the day, and it's still there, but you talk West Side versus South Side. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember it was, so I remember that. And did you feel a lot of that when you were coming up? Because you talk about, like, you had Tim Hardaway,
it was
the Westinghouse guys. You talk about the Orr guys. You talk about the Isaiah. Isaiah ended up going to
Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway, Terry Cummins. I'm still in contact with Terry. He's in Atlanta now. But the thing was, at Morgan Park, we were an all-black team with a white coach, basically. And so we went on the West Side. They treated us like we were traitors. We went out to the suburbs. They treated us like, we didn't belong. And so we had to fight no matter where we went.
Yeah. So
we took the attitude like, okay, we're going to win. We're not going to lose and fight. But just about every time we played, I remember playing down in Mentino.
Yeah.
I can't remember the school, but we had to fight to get out of there. We all had, I think, the starting 5 or 6, we ended up with 4. Everybody had a foul, at least 4.
Yeah.
And so we were down in the first half, maybe about 20, something like that. And then one of our captains who taught me how to win, not just play the game, gave me that winning attitude. It was like, he would grab us by the collar. He would shake us or say something, and then we would just turn it up. So as the game got closer, the game got more physical, and so after the game, the stands were quiet. We ended up winning by I can't remember the point spread, but we ended up winning, and then we had to fight. We had to fight when we went to Carver. My freshman year, which was right on the south side, but we went into Allgale Gardens, and I'm a freshman, and I get a chance to sit because the freshmen didn't sit on the back of the bus. First of all, that was reserved for varsity and elite players. But I'm a freshman, and I'm sitting on the back of the bus, and so we getting off the bus last. And I tell this story to the captain, my captain at the time, all the time. Whenever we talk, he turns to me. We were the last 2 to get off the bus. And he grabbed me by my collar just like this. And he said, look, if we get into a fight and you don't fight, I'm going to kick you when we get back on this bus, just like that. And so I was like, this is my first game at Carver now against Brian Banks and all these guys. And so I was like, okay, let's go. And it was just that simple.
The basketball record was great. What was the fight record? Now I need to know this. Y'all kept making it home, so I'm assuming y'all won a lot.
we you know what? We got into a fight in Phillips. Was it Phillips or Park? I think it was Phillips. They had this old gym upstairs, and the same guy that hit the winning shot for the state, Larry was a talker.
Yeah.
Okay. Larry would turn and talk to the crowd and tell them, I'm going to hit this shot there. I'm going to do this. And so if you could picture this, the gym is packed. We're upstairs. And there's not even a foot from the sideline to where the first person. As a matter of fact, the bleachers, you had to turn sideways so that they wouldn't stick their feet out onto the court as we ran by. And so we were down 1 or 2. Larry hits his first free throw. And so they're throwing stuff, pennies and locks and screaming and, you know, all that. And Larry turns around, he gives the crowd the finger. He gives the crowd, and he's turning around the free throw, and he hits the free throw on top of it. And so, long story short, we ended up winning about 1 or 2 points. The crowd poured down on top of us. We're standing with our backs to each other, and we're just punching. They called the police. The police made a gauntlet, and we walked out with the whole crowd still, you know, coming
trying
in
to
on
get to you,
trying to get to us and all that. We get on the bus, and that's what that era was like for me.
Yeah.
You know, you either won or you fought, and if you lost, you better win the fight. You know, it was no getting back on the bus. You know, we lost the game and we lost the fight. Nah,
yeah, you might as well win one of them.
Yeah, you got to win something, man. You know.
Yeah.
But it drove our coach crazy.
So let's talk some more about your legacy at Illinois. So you and Eddie Johnson, primarily you though, you guys turned the tide at Illinois, and you really start to. And in the '80s, right, we start to see that, especially out of the South Side, we start to see this flow of players, and that's why we wanted to have you on, because you really turned the tide for Illinois and the public league kids going down to Illinois, right? And it wasn't just that. Kenny Battles from West Aurora was part of that Flying Illini team.
Yeah.
Right. And so you really, when you think about that, you know, I know you probably didn't have there are some great memories for you playing there, but the legacy that we think about when we think about Levi, and what really in my mind makes you a legend, is how you really turned around the program at Illinois. Levi Cobb going to Illinois turned that program around, and so many kids followed you down to Illinois. How does that make you feel when you stop and think about the effect that you've had on that program going down at Illinois?
Wow. Two things. One, the first one was, comes to mind, Coach Nagy came to me during the camp. And this was after, it might have been 82, 83, something like that. And there was an article in the newspaper that said, Levi didn't like his time, but didn't appreciate his time at Illinois, something like that. And Coach Nagy showed me the article. He said, Levi, did you say this? I said, no, that's not what I said. He said, well, what happened? I said, reporter asked me about my time at Illinois. And I told him, this is what I said, Coach. I said, we didn't do what we were supposed to do as a team to win a championship. Mm-hmm. I said, now, as far as the professors, the fans, you know, we had our ups and downs with the fans, especially my freshman year. I was ready to come home after my freshman year. There's a couple incident things that happened. But for the most part, the professors, the fans, the people at Illinois, they really, you know, poured everything into us. You know, they really gave us an opportunity to say, hey, you know, we know you from the city. You know, we know you coming down here to help us become, you know, a winning organization. I said, so I had a great time. I said, but what I said to the reporter was, and I told this to Eddie Johnson, we had left the camp and we were driving back to Chicago together. I said, Eddie, I said, man, we didn't win a championship.
Yeah.
That was my only disappointment. That's my disappointment now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, when are we going to win a championship? The stats and the points and, you know, hey, we're rated number 17th in the recruiting thing, blah, blah, blah. When are we going to win a championship? For me.
Well, I got to tell you, I got to tell you, though, we keep seeing Illinois, right? Coach Bielema is trying to change that, but right, when people say that, right, the recruiters, the football recruiters say, "Oh, you don't want to go there." Illinois is a basketball school,
yeah,
right? And a large part of that is because of the work that you did to change that. And so, you know, that's the reason we wanted to have you on, that because you look at the guys that followed you down there, especially, you know, and it was pretty quick, you know. You know, everybody talks about the Simeon guys, Nick Anderson, Benji Wilson was following you down there, Marcus Liberty, you know, and we just those teams from the 80s, you know, and they haven't quite gotten it done. But I got to tell you, I love what Coach Underwood's doing, because the recruits he's got this year, he just loves the portal.
Yeah,
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Two things. When it comes to the portal and NIL, I'm for it. Yeah, I am. I'm for it. My biggest concern, some of the things I've been hearing, it happened to one school. A good friend of mine, his daughter plays at a D1 school, and they brought in like 5 or 6 different players, and it ended up being, you know, not a good setting for them to win, because all the 5 players were on their own program.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to either get the next best deal or the next best stats opportunity to get the best deal. So when you look at it like that, from my perspective, I wish they would sit down and interview some of these people that want to come here or come to Illinois. So, okay, you're leaving Texas to come to Illinois. Why? You know, why did you leave there?
Yeah.
What happened there that made you want to come here? Why are you coming here? It can't be just the money.
And these kids are so young, they don't know. You know, you talk about Illinois, think about Coleman Hawkins. Coleman Hawkins was in tears after he did it. And he said, I can't. He said, I left for the money.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. And I still talk to a couple of football players of mine that played when I was at Illinois. We were broke.
Yeah.
You know, we went to this place called Uncle John's. There was a pancake house, and all the pancakes you could eat for $1. You know, so we thought we were, you know, big wigs back then. We gather our change, and 10, you know, 12 of us go over to Uncle John's and eat all the pancakes, you know. And now, you know, it's got to be, as a coach, I put myself in the position, well, like you said, a Coach Underwood or a coach at that level. For me, if I'm coaching that team, I need to know more about the people that I'm bringing into my locker room, because it's not, you know, I think Coach Pitino said, I'm not looking for freshmen. I'm losing 3 great players. I'm looking to replace the 3 great players that are leaving. So I'm going to the portal.
Yeah.
So for me, it's got to be more than, you know, we lost a 20-point score, and, you know, he was getting 17 to 20 points a game and grabbing 8 rebounds. We can replace him with this player. I need to know, you know, more of why you come in here, who's in my locker room, because there's an amount of trust that and camaraderie that we don't all talk about. You know, we talk about the NIL, we talk about the portal, but in order to win that championship, I got to trust the guy next to me.
Yeah.
I got to know he's got my back, you know, truly. I got to know that we're on the same page. You know, if this kid is making $5 million, God bless him. You know, but when we get in that locker room, we step across those lines, if we're not on the same page, well, you need to get your ass out of it. Excuse me, you need to get your butt out of it.
You good. Yeah.
Because we need
that's real.
You know, we need to, it's got to be more. It's got to be something more, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. It's got to be more than the money. It's got to be more than, in order to, because I was taught, once you win a championship, you have the formula. you can look back and say, how did we win this championship? Hell, it was the running, it was the meetings, it was the extra time, it was the sacrifice, it was, all the intangible things that we talk about to win a championship. All right, so if you can apply that formula to any other business or any other area of your life, you should be all right.
Yeah.
So why would I want to leave? Why would I want to do something that's contradictory to that? My whole thing is that you win a championship, you'll be a part of history.
Yeah.
And everybody on that team will be a part of history. From the managers to the front office people to the secretary, everybody contributes in some way to that championship at that level, at any level, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So it's not just the players. It's got to be something more to than the NIL. It's got to be something more than. And I know we're in this analytical era where stats are important. I'm not saying that they're not important, but it's got to. I need more from my players. I need to know I can look him in his eye and tell if he's going to go out there and put his body on the line for this championship, and not think about, well, you know what, I'm 3 points shy of my average. I need to get 3 more points.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna let you get out of here. We appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you taking the time. Before you do, I gotta ask you about what you have going on now. I mean, the connection you still have to basketball is great. What have you been doing since the college days, and I guess till now, to give back to the game of basketball and to give back to the kids out here?
Oh wow. I want to say 2018, 2019, I started a non-for-profit FTA, Fundamental Training Academy, and we work with middle school through that first year of college athletes, boys and girls, and it's a mobile service. So coaches will call me up and invite me to come to practice or come to a game to give them suggestions on how they could better perform, or body language of the players, different aspects of the game. That's during the season. Off season, it's about training. So I do a lot of personal training with basketball players, boys and girls. Right now, we just finished a camp with the Police Athletic League, excuse me, down here in Orlando. And that really kicks off our summer because kids are out of school. Yep. And we get them for a full week, So we get to give them the fundamentals. We talk about all the intangibles, about their attitude, body language, any of that. And one of the terms one of the officers said this week was about don't be a TV player, with all the gestures and all the, bad body language. So we talked a lot about that. And so next month in July, we're doing a tour of Africa where we have been sending, and the Bulls were a big part of that. The Bulls, the Atlanta Hawks, the Atlanta Dream, they donate clothing, T-shirts, and we ship everything over to Africa, the kids. Now, there's 2 different fractions over there. There's the elite fraction over there, and then there's the ground roots where they play outside. The courts are mangled, but they have a true love for the game. And that's what really got me to go over there. So next month, we're doing a tour. We're going to Dakar, Senegal, going to Gambia, and possibly Botswana to do, camps and clinics and talk about the game and try to meet more players. I've got tons of players that want to come here, that want to play here, either in high school or college. But in high school, you need a host parent, to really, and so the parents have to fill out paperwork in the state and with the city to bring kids over, and then the kids have to speak English. They have to have their paperwork in order in terms of a work study visa, all of that before they actually come. But we get videos all the time of kids that want to come here, and I'm going there to continue to teach and to give them police equipment and T-shirts and things like that to keep them motivated. The Police Athletic League here, they're donating a portable basket. We're donating, FTA is donating boxes of basketballs that we're going to ship there. We're going to leave all that stuff over there so the kids can, use those tools to get better. So that's what we got. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Giving back to the game is so cool, and seeing how you use your experience in your life to be able to go over there and help those kids, as we've seen with NBA Africa and stuff like that. And like you said, in the grassroots where there's a love for the game. I mean, these kids come out of nowhere. It literally, Kamalik from Duke, is like, he just got too tall to play soccer, and all of a sudden he wanted to like throw him on a basketball court, and he's really good. Like Joel Embiid was a similar story. So it's really cool to see how you've been able to give back to the game. And did you ever have Io when he was here at Morgan Park, and he followed your journey essentially?
Yeah, when he was at Morgan Park, I didn't know they were working out in the gym. So whenever I come home, there's certain stops. You gotta come when you come to Chicago. There's certain stops that you gotta go to Portillo's.
Absolutely,
you gotta have the pizza.
Absolutely.
I got to go back to the gym that where I first started, Morgan Park. And so driving through the neighborhood, I saw a lot of cars outside the gym, and I stopped. I go inside, and I was in there working out, and they happened to be doing. God, I can't think of the guy's name. He's gonna kill me. They're doing an interview with Io.
Okay.
And, I think one of the Irving brothers he was the head coach at the time, and he said, "Levi," he said, "Io, come here," and he said, "This is Levi Cobb. He put that first banner up, and blah blah blah." He went through the whole history of that. And very polite, very, and shook hands. And before I know it, we were on the court. And, we were talking about footwork. We were talking about, his shot. I was watching him work out, that whole thing. And from there, he went to Illinois.
Yeah.
And that was another surprise for me. I was like, he's going to Illinois? I was like, oh, man, this kid, y'all need to keep an eye on this kid, because I've seen his workouts.
Yeah.
He's really going to be good. And now he's with the Bulls. Hopefully he's still with the Bulls, but
he is
still there.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Hey, we won't let him out of Chicago, man.
We won't. We ain't gonna let him. We should have gotten TSJ to come to Chicago.
Terry Shannon, the dog. We got Modest out of Hinsdale. That's it's not Chicago, but
I know, but we should have traded up back into the first round and gotten TSJ, man. He was hanging out there.
He was.
Well, you know what? What I really see in a lot of these players, and I had the very fortunate time to speak with Jerry Colangelo and Coach McLeod in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And so just sitting around listening to them, then I had a chance to talk with, oh my God, he's going to kill me. He was the coach for the Atlanta Hawks, Seattle, Coach Wilkins.
Lenny Wilkins, yeah.
Oh, Lenny Wilkins. Yeah.
I had a chance to listen to them. And so, you sit and listen and absorb some of their knowledge from guys that have been to that level and have been to that championship level. And the thing that keeps coming back to my mind is like, hey, son, welcome to the NBA. What are you going to do to stay?
Yeah.
Because everybody's great at that level. So about SGA, we didn't know, nobody knew how he was going to pan out. He dedicated himself. He did all the things that he was supposed to do to get to where he is now. He's the MVP now.
Yeah.
So it's really about that player's drive. Because think about it. Yeah, and I tell kids this now. I wasn't the best player that came out of Chicago during that era. My drive was to work hard and outwork you. Yeah. There were guys that could 360 holding the ball out, straight, could throw it underneath their legs, all kinds of stuff. I couldn't do that. But I dedicated myself to working hard and to putting the time in. And so that got me on your show.
Hey, listen, no, That got you to where you've been, and we're honored to have you here on the show. And we appreciate
an
you.
Absolute privilege to have
Yes.
you join us today.
Man, I appreciate that.
To share your memories and to be there. As a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, those were some great memories. I shared them with my dad, and now to get to share them with my son
Awesome.
It has been a privilege. And so I don't care what those kids from the west side said. South side basketball was the best basketball there was. And all you got to do is look at all those kids that they followed you down to the University of Illinois, Levi. So it's been an absolute privilege to have you today. And yeah, we're going to try and get down there to Orlando, and Patrick and I, and do a show down there. And when you're back up in town, we gotta do breakfast. So
hey guys, I said
down, okay?
I mentioned this once before. If you guys ever decide to come down, how can I put this politically? I could be politically correct.
No, we'll do it offline. We'll do it offline, okay? We'll talk offline, but we will do a show offline, okay?
Well, we have what we call men's night.
Yeah.
Okay. Thursday night. No girlfriends, no wives.
We'll be there.
Athletes, business
Patrick
guys.
Pat and I are talking about doing it, so we'll get together, okay?
Hopefully do you guys like cigars?
We're not cigar people, but
I don't smoke, but we'll enjoy the time.
We don't smoke, but we'll come down and have a beer or two with you, okay? Have a drink.
Hey, that is great. That is great.
So, ladies and gentlemen, clap it up in the comments. Levi Cobb joining us here. We appreciate him taking the time out. We're going to let him go. We're gonna get up out of here. We appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Y'all stay safe out there in Chicago, especially Southside Chicago. Peace.
There you go. Thanks, guys.